What's up, everybody? We've got a new update on Marvel's Midnight Suns movie, and so I decided it's time to build out the roster. Let's dive in. The newest update regarding this movie comes to us from Daniel RPK, and it's that Ghost Rider is said to be the team leader in the movie. Of course, we take that with a grain of salt as always, but Daniel is a pretty reliable insider, and that passes my smell test, so I kind of tend to believe it. I think it'll be Johnny Blaze's Ghost Rider in the MCU too. It feels like Kevin Feige probably doesn't want to be associated with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. any more than he has to, and they did Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider, although I don't know how well they did it. I stopped watching the show before they brought him in, but I don't know, maybe there's something where he wants to fix what they did if there's anything that needs fixing. But also, I think it's going to be Johnny because of the names being thrown around for who they're going to cast as Ghost Rider, and it means that Robbie is kind of off the table unless he's going to be a white dude, considering the top names are like Ryan Gosling and Norman Reedus. Regardless of which version of the character it is, though, Daniel is indeed saying he'll be team leader in the movie. Anyway, the next member is a no-doubter, and that's Blade. Mahershala Ali has been sitting and waiting, potentially causing some of that waiting for himself by wanting the best script for Blade, but still sitting and waiting on the sidelines at Marvel for far too long. This could also serve as his first appearance before his solo movie if the let's call them struggles continue to get that one off the ground. Then you've got Wong, who's been popping up in every corner of the MCU in the multiverse saga, and I think he's a much better fit for the MCU Midnight Suns than MCU Doctor Strange would be. Every team needs at least a little bit of comedic relief, and Wong brings that while also being incredibly powerful. He might be a goofball, but he is Sorcerer Supreme after all, at least for the time being. But you also have to take into account the fact that Benedict Cumberbatch in the near future will be busy with Doctor Strange 3 unless they somehow get that out during Phase 6 in between these Avengers movies, but I don't see that as a possibility at this point, even with those Avengers delays, and so Wong just makes sense on multiple levels here. From there, I'm bringing the trio from Werewolf by Night, Elsa Bloodstone, Jack Russell the Werewolf, and Man-Thing. That Halloween special is one of the most underrated things that Marvel has ever done, and it kicked off this corner of the MCU essentially, so these three have guaranteed spots in my eyes. It could also explain or offer another explanation for why Man-Thing wasn't allowed to be in Thunderbolts, but like an in-universe explanation this time around. Then the final member on my Midnight Suns team would be Moon Knight. This is another Mahershala case where Oscar Isaac has been sidelined far too long, but at least he got to appear in his own show, but since then, nothing. I'm sure he'll be back for these Avengers movies. Well, maybe, I don't know, he might not be, but regardless, this corner of the MCU is a good home for Moon Knight going forward as there loves, that violence that was replaced with the blackouts in his show. However, there are three members here that could be on this team that I just don't think need to be on the team, so let's go over these honorable mentions real quick before we get to the villain. John Bernthal's Punisher is the obvious one, and I'm not one of those, what does Punisher do on the Midnight Suns team people, but I like Bernthal's version of Frank Castle in the streets of New York dealing with the likes of Kingpin and his goons and the mob too, so sure, you could give him silver bullets and magic bullets and it would work perfectly fine. I would eat it up, but it's not something that I need to see. The other one, and this one does kind of feel like it would be a given too, but it's Black Knight, which was the big tease along with Blade at the end of Eternals. Kit Harington was ready to go. It looked like Blade was going to get off the ground and going, and then nothing. What that says to me, and I know they used Tiamat to introduce Adamantium in Cap 4, but still, is that they want to forget about Eternals, essentially. I think that's a bit of an overreaction by the studio, but it is what it is at the end of the day. Then the final member that I left off, and this one is more just one that the fans have been asking for. In fact, it is because she's an MCU original character, and that's Scarlet Scarab. Yes, her being an MCU original does kind of mean they're probably a bit more inclined to use her in this movie, but, if I'm being honest here, I'd rather just bring Moon Knight over from that show. With that being said, I want to move on to my pick for the villain of this movie, and it would actually pick up on something that's about to get kicked off this year in the MCU. I think the villain of the first Midnight Suns movie should be Mephisto. He's set to be introduced into the MCU in just over a week now in the Ironheart show, and I think they can use that as the building block to make him a Loki type, an Ultron type, semi big bad for Phase 7. Maybe Wong is alerted to his dealings with the Hood through Magic Talk Radio 76.9, and then he starts tracking his activity up until the movie. That's something where they could just lay a tiny Easter egg. It doesn't even have to be the focus, just like behind Wong, every time he pops up, hinting at Mephisto before this movie, which would only be so many times, but still, you get the point. It's like I said, start building up to him as he deals with the Hood and Ironheart, and then move on to him making deals with other heroes and characters, non-heroes across the MCU until this movie. In fact, that's where Midnight Suns could pick up from Ironheart. Maybe he's going to need a new business partner to fulfill his plan. God forbid that they kill off Anthony Ramos as the Hood. I hope that's not the case. Maybe he's just, captured or they cut off the deal, whatever. But maybe he's going to need a new business partner to fulfill his plan that just, for the sake of things, we'll say, is going to be bringing more souls of the damned into his realm, which makes him more powerful. I'd also love to see a fight down there, too, in Mephisto's realm. That's a great part of the Christopher Priest Black Panther run, and something that could be, emphasis on the could be, damn cool with modern VFX. Finally, I think there's only two options for who should direct this movie, and they've both brought us some of the best shows and movies from the multiverse saga. But if I'm being honest, I do think I prefer the first option over the second one I'm going to give you, even though I sing both of their praises like almost no other. My preferred director of the MCU's Midnight Suns movie is Michael Giacchino. In fact, in my ideal world, he's directing and composing this movie. He did such a great job on Werewolf by Night, doing both of those things, and he could handle this supernatural side of the MCU, while Matt Shackman does space and everything, and then Benson and Moorhead do street level. However, I would 100% be okay with them moving from street level to the supernatural side of things, as Benson and Moorhead, who directed Moon Knight, Loki Season 2, and Daredevil Born Again, are my second choice for this gig. Let them cook, give them that R rating that they were missing on Moon Knight, and it's going to be glorious, I guarantee it. But that's going to do it for today's video. I want to know who you guys would put on this MCU Midnight Suns team, so drop your version down in the comments below and make sure you have a great day.